The profound and wondrous Dharma is rarely encountered, even 100 million kalpas, having yet to hear, accept, and maintain. May I taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. So, welcome everyone to the Stone Creek Zoom Zendo. Today is December 6th, and the day after tomorrow will be December 8th, which is the day and the traditions of Buddhism in East Asia honor and celebrate as the day of the Buddha realized awakening. The 8th day of the 12th month. So Rohatsu is refers to, well, it wasn't always this day because we've adjusted now to our calendar, but around now. And Zen monasteries often honor Buddha's awakening with a sesshin, or Rohatsu sesshin, or intensive meditation retreat, culminating on December 8th. And Stone Creek will just be offering a morning of Zazen on December 8th from 9 a.m. to noon. And so we do this thing of honoring Buddha, actualizing awakening. And what I want to talk about this morning is how this is our practice of Zazen. Whenever we sit Zazen, engaging Zazen as a practice of Buddha's awakening. And I want to particularly bring this up this morning in terms of some teachings in a key essay by Dogen called Bendo Wa. Bendo Wa can be translated as the talk on the wholehearted way, or negotiating the way. It's also been translated on the endeavor of the way. And as part of our morning chanting rotation, we recite a section of Bendo Wa called the Jijuyu Zanmai, which is can translate as the samadhi of the whole self, or the self-fulfilling samadhi. So the Jijuyu, Ji is self, Ju is receive, like Jukai, receiving the precepts, and Yu is function or use. And when we put Ju and Yu together, that can mean fulfillment or enjoyment. And then Zanmai is the transliteration of samadhi. And so it's often translated as concentration or absorption. My feeling is that in Dogen, I receive samadhi as kind of a deep engagement, or full engagement, or wholehearted engagement. When I trained at Tausahara, we would usually chant this text, this Jijuyu Zanmai, the samadhi of the whole self, for noon service every day during the practice periods. October through the beginning of April, and I have a kind of devotional heart feeling for this text. And when I was reflecting on how, when I teach or when I give talks, and I turn to Dogen, usually I turn to Genjo Koan, and I just feel like it has all these images and distinctions that are really useful for how we unfold practice. And and the samadhi of the whole self doesn't really unfold practice in that way for me. I experience it more like a samadhi poem, or like a painting of Zazen. And there's a way in which I don't really want to think about it very much or figure it out. I love to chant it and then just sit and then chant it. And it just has that feeling of coming out of Zazen, going into Zazen. It's more like colors and sounds than ideas. But this morning, I'm going to try and talk about it. So one thing I've heard is actually connected to Buddha's awakening is that this Jijuyu Zanmai, I don't think Dogen coined this term. I think this was a term from earlier Buddhist discourse in East Asia. That this Jijuyu Zanmai, this samadhi of the whole self, refers specifically to Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree after realizing awakening. So there's Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree in the story, and then he realizes awakening, and then he keeps sitting under the Bodhi tree. And there's different stories about this for like 7 days. Sometimes it says like actually he continued sitting just for 49 days, although he went to a new place each week. And so this Jijuyu Zanmai is this enjoyment. It's this enjoyment of awakening. So, yeah. All right. And so then this is our practice in terms of this Dogen's vision of practice is practice realization. So Dogen does not teach Zazen as Buddha sitting before he realized awakening, but Zazen of Buddha realizing awakening and this enjoyment of awakening. And so this is part of the spirit of practice realization or practice based on realization. And Jisho brought this up last week, that we're not kind of doing practice with a goal out there of realization being something that, if it's not here, we have some idea about it being something different from this and being over there somewhere. So Zazen is Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree. And so in Bendo Wa, or Jijuyu Zanmai, Dogen says, when you display the Buddha mudra with your whole body and mind, each and everything throughout the Dharma world is the Buddha mudra, and all space without exception is enlightenment. And here's another translation of this same passage. When even for a moment you express the Buddha's seal in the 3 actions by sitting upright in samadhi, the whole phenomenal world becomes the Buddha's seal, and the entire sky turns into enlightenment. So this is Dogen's talking about Zazen, and you're expressing or displaying or manifesting this seal or mudra of the Buddha in the 3 actions. The 3 actions are actions of body, speech, and mind, or your whole being. And mudra is the Sanskrit word, and mudra means a seal, a mark, a gesture, and usually refers to ritualized hand gestures like gasho, or during meditation we have the cosmic mudra. And the Chinese character used to translate mudra also is the character used for a seal or a chop, used to seal or mark a document, sign a document. And so Dogen says Buddha's seal, and so this could be referring to the mudra we practice in Zazen, the cosmic mudra, the Dharma Dhatu mudra. It's the mudra of the universe or the realm of phenomena. And so our Zazen mudra, we're palm resting in palm with thumb tips lightly touching. And I really appreciate this particular point of our meditation posture, this thumb tips lightly touching, as a kind of wonderful, subtle opportunity. And so, like in sitting, there's breathing, there's almost always breathing. We have our posture, our uprightness, There's sensations, there's feelings, there's emotions, there might be thinking. We can attend to all these things. And also this thumb tips lightly touching can be part of what we attend to in our sitting. And, and notice, just like we notice if we're caught in our thinking or if we're trying to avoid a feeling. And we can notice our thumb tips. And, if they slip, just apart a little bit, like what's happening, or if they're pressing together just a tiny bit, what's that? Or sometimes, I'll find that they're pressing together pretty hard. Or sometimes they'll be really far apart. And when I'd go for Doksan, for a meeting with the teacher, when I was training at San Francisco Zen Center, sometimes I'd receive feedback on my mudra, like, how is it to hold your thumbs a little bit higher? Just try that, and try, and how do you make a nice kind of egg shape? And so we're kind of part of our practice is taking care of this mudra, taking care of this seal. The Buddha seal could also be an abbreviation of Buddha mind seal, which is a term in Zen. And we can say one thing, it sometimes refers to is Buddha nature. So there's Buddha mind seal, it's Buddha nature, or how the truth of awakening lives in us, or how our basic nature is sealed or stamped with Buddha or awakening. So this is kind of, in some sense, there seems to be a kind of play with the idea of the intimacy or the mutuality of the seal and what is sealed. And then this reminds me of the Sandokai, the merging of difference and sameness. Phenomena exist like box and lid fitting, principle responds like arrow points meeting. So there's me, and there's awakening, and my life is that those are inseparable. Those are arrow points meeting, or box and lid fitting. And this is like this truth of our life, and just the truth doesn't save us, but we can practice this truth. We can actualize this truth. We can live this truth. So this is what I hear Dogen talking to, and like when even for a moment you express the Buddha's seal in the three actions by sitting upright. So this is a practice of like how awakening is right here. How is this moment arrow points meeting? How do we show up for that? And another kind of really compelling thing for me about this one particular quote from Bendo Wa is this expressing the Buddha's seal in the three actions. So in our whole activity of body, speech, and mind. So a key point for me here is that Zazen is not just a psychological exercise or practice. It's not just about experience. It's not just a mind thing. It's expressing, it's manifesting, it's enacting, it's embodying. It's a practice of our whole being. It's the whole activity of sitting. The wholeness of the activity of self in all things sitting. And so how do we engage? How do we do this? How do we engage the three actions of body, speech, and mind in expressing awakening? And, so like, is this something we need to remember? Like when we're sitting, like, oh, now I'm expressing awakening? Is this something we need to believe? Is this something we do somehow? Is this something in addition to just having a body and a mind in this moment? So in another section of Bendowa, Dogen talks about the importance of genuine trust in engaging the samadhi of the whole self. And so I want to talk about this genuine trust. And I'm hearing trust here as distinct from belief. I feel like belief being oriented towards understanding, or some content of thinking, whereas trust here is like a practice of our whole being, and it embraces the somatic, emotional, and cognitive spheres of our existence. So entrusting our life in this moment to this meeting, to this arrow points meeting, to this awakening being inseparable from exactly what our life is right here. How it is to be completely this person as an expression of awakening. So me being fully me, which would include me fully experiencing me, and also me fully expressing me, fully displaying me, fully showing up as me. And in the fullness of this, body and mind are inseparable, and experience and expression are inseparable. And we can experience a lack of trust in how we consciously or habitually try to manage what we're feeling, or try to control or contain or manage our experience, or this self, or our life, or our sense of being okay. So trust is releasing these efforts at managing, releasing these forms of grasping and holding. And these are, you can also look at these as ways of being involved in thinking, or forms of carrying a self forward and experiencing things in Genjo Koan. So we can release these patterns of grasping and tightness, or attempts to control and manage, just by noticing them, feeling them, getting in touch with them. We can't manage or control them into releasing, but the feeling of them thoroughly can allow them to release. And I see this as a process of opening and awareness, inhabiting, and inquiry. So opening, feeling, and inquiring into this life. I was following the election news over the last month, and I could see these different dispositions arising around this question of, quote, calling the election. And I could see a tendency to want to just relax with a feeling of a kind of trust that the various attempts to overturn election results would fail at one point or another, and that this was a done deal. But more often, I did not feel relaxed. I felt concerned that some of these attempts might actually succeed or have some impact. And I had doubts about whether these election results would hold up. And this genuine trust is, I would say, is it's not this trust that things will work out. And it's not apart from this concern that things might not work out. It's fully being this person when there's a confidence that the results will hold, or when there are doubts. So in either disposition, and whatever's in between the revolving of the dispositions, arrow points meet. And if I think I have to be somehow different than this to open or to actualize arrow points meeting, I'm involved with my thinking. And I'm turning away from, or I'm obscuring for myself, arrow points meeting right here. Zazen is an opportunity to completely dedicate myself to being this person, to being this life right here in this moment with the particular, aches and pains and doubts and feelings and wonderings of, this day. So it's not getting away from the difficult situations and pain. All that's included as the site of awakening, as our seat under the Bodhi tree. And so this is partially this image of the lotus blooming in the flames, which is our logo for our 2020 Stone Creek t-shirts and sweaters and hats and other stuff. A lotus blooming in flames can embody our practice of Zazen, opening in the flames of suffering, of self and other, of this whole world. And it can embody our aspiration for Stone Creek, growing and unfolding in this pandemic. And for Sangha, maturing and renewing in social distancing. And the lotus in flames is another image of this arrow points meeting, or a sealing, or thumb tips touching. A few talks ago, I think in September, I spoke about working with my fear and also working with a wound I found under my fear and patterns of grasping and holding around my fear in relation to my wound. When there's fear, genuine trust is fully being with the fear, fully being with any grasping around the fear, with any stories we might be believing in relation to the fear, and fully being with any pain or wounding that may also be associated with the fear. And I don't manage my life into awakening, and I don't manage awakening into my life. Zazen is trusting in the unmanageable intimacy of my life and awakening. When I try to manage the expression of the Buddha's mudra, that's limiting practice, limiting realization. This genuine trust is getting in touch with our vulnerability. And Zazen it can support me to be fully in touch with the truth of the basic fact of my vulnerability, with the basic fact of being mortal and in a totally relational life, and be in touch with it and embrace it. Embrace being totally mortal. Giving myself completely to this moment, fully given, fully offered, fully showing up. Doing practice as something which leads to awakening is not genuine trust. When we do something for the sake of something else, it is not wholehearted. It's not devotion to this moment. It's a samadhi of grasping after some awakening, which we project as different. In this self-fulfilling samadhi section, in the samadhi of the whole self section of Bendo Wa, I mentioned that Dogen, there's this vision. It's a vision of Zazen. And it's a vision of Zazen that's not something that an individual person does in isolation. It's resonating with the whole phenomenal world and the entire sky. And I'd also say it's a vision of complete reciprocity of practice and awakening. There's this thing, he's talking about a circulation of awakening and the activity of Buddha with earth, grass, trees, fences, walls, tiles, pebbles. And it's a process of mutual illumination. Dogen says, trees and grasses, walls and fences expound and exalt the Dharma for the sake of ordinary people, sages, and all living beings. Ordinary people, sages, and all living beings in turn expound and exalt the Dharma for the sake of trees, grasses, walls, and fences. And another way Dogen speaks of this is Dokkan, the ring of the way, or the circle of the way, which Jisho spoke about last week. So Zazen, as the practice of a person, renews and actualizes Buddha's awakening. Buddha's awakening renews and actualizes the Zazen practice of a person. The more fully I show up in this moment, the more fully it shows up to meet me. And so everything is included in this ring or this circle of practice, actualizing awakening, awakening, actualizing practice, or of a practice and awakening, actualizing aspiration and teaching, aspiration and teaching, actualizing practice and awakening. The lotus actualizes the flames actualize the lotus. Self and other, person and things, me and the world, mutually resonate with practice, awakening, sharing the Dharma. When I was working on this talk, I was sitting on our couch in my usual spot in the northeast corner of our living room. And my trees and grasses and walls and fences are like my laptop, with various chairs scattered around the room. We have a dining room table and a coffee table, which are both usually covered with books, mugs, papers, candles, games, napkins. There's Legos spread on the floor. There's a lamp a few feet to my right. Our children, Loka and Kaya, might be passing through. A dog is often snuggled next to me on the couch. Cars are driving by outside. A fish tank filter is humming away. Winter light is coming through the windows. So these are my trees, grasses, walls, and fences. These are my flames. And you could also say these are my halo. And it feels full to inhabit in this body, in this fleeting moment of being together here. A fullness that's always available, and I would say always alive. And I find often heart opening or heart stretching. When I see practice as a step-by-step progression going from where I am now to some other place, that's a story. It's a linear story. And that, and what I want to attend to is how a linear story could shape my engagement with practice, to make it small. And so I feel kind of encouraged, and I think part of my love and devotion for this teaching of Dogen is just how vast and kind of wondrous his vision is of just a regular, normal person sitting Zazen. Zazen actualizing life in this moment as a great ocean. When I have fear, I might want practice to be something that would lead me to having no fear. I could have that story. And that could kind of be a story that then shapes my engagement in Zazen. And I would say makes it small. And the kind of liberation I'm interested in is integrative. And so what's healing in my feeling is not getting away from my fear or my wound, but becoming whole with my wound in a way that's inclusive. And so my fear and my wounding are also my flames, and my fear and my wounding are also my halo. Dogen has another essay called Buddha Nature, and he talks about how there's this famous story of Nagarjuna, one of the great Indian Buddhist philosopher and practitioner, manifesting the form of a full moon. So he would teach, and then one day he went up to teach, and it said that he manifested the form of a full moon. And then Dogen says that in China, he's seen these paintings of this, and they just show they show like a Dharma seat with like a great big full moon. And Dogen really didn't like this. He liked the story. He thought the story was great. He thought the story for him was like, when you express the Buddha seal and the 3 actions by sitting upright in samadhi, you manifest the shape form of the full moon. But he didn't like that people thought this meant that Nagarjuna's body would somehow disappear, or somehow that there was this full moon shape, and then where was the body? Where was Nagarjuna? And we could think in this vision of Zazen that somehow we would transcend embodied existence, or somehow like everything, at least for us, would become this bright light. And Dogen is saying, when I manifest the full bright moon of awakening, it's with this body, exactly as this body is right here, with the aches and pains and fear and wounds. This place right here is the seat of awakening. Bowing to our seat before we sit. This is bowing to the seat of awakening. It's part of our ritual of Zazen. We bow to arrow points meeting right here. And so this is this genuine to fully be here as my life. It's not exactly trusting in what is happening or trusting that this should be happening, but trusting in the courageous, inquisitive opening into wholehearted presence. In some formulations, Jijuyu, this self-fulfillment, is contrasted with Ta-Juyu, where Ta is other. So Ta-Juyu is others receiving the enjoyment or fulfillment of the Dharma or awakening. And then this is kind of then corresponded, so Jijuyu is Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree. Ta-Juyu is Buddha's life of teaching once he gets up, starts interacting with people. But when we look at Dogen's teachings, he only talks about Jijuyu Zanmai. He never brings up Ta-Juyu. And I think that for Dogen, the self-fulfilling samadhi, or the samadhi of the whole self, includes Ta-Juyu, includes the teaching activity, the sharing of awakening, the sharing of ourselves, the sharing of Dharma. And, for him, the self of the self-fulfilling samadhi is not a self that's opposed to other, but a samadhi of self-other intimacy, of mutual fulfillment. And so Dogen also in our chanting, we recite the realm of self-awakening as awakening others. So this is Bodhisattva Zazen. Sitting itself is endlessly opening and inquiring and actualizing awakening through myriad activities, myriad relations, whoever we encounter today. All right, so this is my attempt for today to honor Buddha's awakening and in the spirit of Dogen's teaching, and as it meets our lives and our flames. So, are there any questions or comments, expressions? Please feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Can I talk?
Oh, yes, please.
Thank you for your talk. I really like the way you described how you were in your home working on your talk, and how everything in your home are not distraction, but part of your talk. It was so much to me a sort of a reflection of what you also said, the grass, the trees, and everybody, and all this reciprocity, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't do it just in our little corner. We need everything to manifest the practice. So,
Yeah.
thank you. I really like the way you describe
that. Thanks. Yeah. And that's also part of the reason why I don't really like concentration as a translation for samadhi. Because concentration often evokes that we're focused on an object to the exclusion. And I feel like he's like, we're focused on this thing to the include, everything's included in the breath, or yeah. Thanks.
Korin, I also want to thank you so much for your talk. I feel like it's still kind of percolating in me, like still integrating. And I guess the question I have is around hard emotion or impulses, like, lust, anger, hatred. And those feel like they pull, when they arise, they feel like they pull me off my center. So it's sort of hard to include them, and sort of let them be. Yeah, so maybe it would be helpful if you would just say a few words about, including them in this samadhi of the whole self.
Well, I feel like there might be a way in which like part of intense anger or intense hatred is that we're totally involved in our thinking and so actively grasping that we're not going to appreciate this samadhi when our mind is so biased or so involved in that way. But one thing I do is or one thing I think the sooner we can notice that we're involved in that way, that just that noticing can help us. And then I do when I sit, I basically welcome anything that's happened in the last day or two that was intense, like moments of anger. I welcome it to revisit me and see what I can notice now of what made me so angry, what touched me. And in the moment, I'm not actually in the moment of anger. I'm usually out of touch with the pain, because I feel like the anger is often a reaction. I'm not going to feel this pain. I'm going to avenge this pain, and so I feel like I feel like we have this. In Zazen, we can, for me, and welcome the hatred, anger, intense emotions, grasping or lust, and welcome them into a place where we can like see more, feel them more, and when we can welcome and include them, they become part of the sitting. And I think if we when we're fighting them, then it's sort of like we don't really appreciate the lotus in the flames. We're just in the flames.
Thank you.
Thank you for the talk so much. I feel that, like last week, I think Jisha was talking about, that we use the word flickering, I think, and and that struck me like that practice, that we can flicker, and and what's happening is continuously happening, and then it can happen, and it's happening while we flicker. And so related to what you're saying, I mean, this idea of, I love the words integration and reciprocity and body, speech and mind. But I want to interject something like that, something about the process of between those moments, or the process, as you said, includes all of this messiness of loose threads, of things that aren't experienced as integrated, or this, it takes us over, can take over time to have these moments of integration, and that there's a heck of a lot of messiness, along the way, and I appreciate how we pull all of it into our view. And it can take a while before there's some kind of shift in acceptance or widening the view or
Yeah.
having those
Yeah.
moments of almost grace where things seem to line up and are just whole, feel whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need a lot of patience, and we need a lot of support. And so we have the support of Sangha, support of the ritual forms, because it is yeah. And yeah. And I think, and we can also enjoy the unfolding. And there's always something to unfold. And that's sort of I would say, for us that can be a source of joy, because every opening is it's a enjoying Buddha's awakening, and we get to enjoy that over and over again throughout our lives.
Curiosity.
Yeah, and just the depths of delusion and grasping are myriad, and keep reasserting themselves in creative ways.
Yes. Thank you.
Unmute audio. There I am. Korin,
Hi.
I really like enlightenment type talks. What popped into my mind is the kids' game where at the end you say, "Ready or not, here I come." That's kind of my problem. I feel like I'm not ready. I need to study more. I need to learn something more. I need to perfect myself, or somehow I'm not ready to be at the airplane meeting. I don't feel, I think it's a sense of, well, there's more to be done before I can really be here. And I put off a lot of parts of my life because of that, because I feel like, I don't know, upbringing or cultural or whatever, but it's like, no, or it's the promise of heaven, although that wasn't that big in my upbringing. It feels more cultural, like, well, I can't really bring my whole self to the party yet, unless, I'm playing Ollie Ollie Oxen.
Oh.
I think I always liked that too, when I got to run around and chase kids.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would start by welcoming that, and you're noticing something, a kind of holding, and to totally welcome that, and start right here. This exactly here.
Okay. You have to block area.
Charlie.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Yes, indeed. Thanks for bringing all of this up. But I'm noticing a difference between allowing something to be in your realm or consciousness or whatever you might call it, and actually expressing it. I mean, we're taught from such an early age to not just do everything that comes to our mind. From a very early age, and there are things that are kind of acceptable in getting along, first in your family and then in other larger situations, and there are things that are not. And screaming down the hallway every time a thought might come into your mind is probably not a good idea. So there's a little bit of skillful means going on that we've learned. We've learned it from very early on in life. How to, because we're not just individuals in an open kind of field. We're usually and often first in family and then in other situations, together with other people. So maybe you could say something about just that skillfulness of being together in as a person or as people working, being together in family and community.
Well, I think in terms of this samadhi, I would say that this part of this genuine trust is a developing a compassion for ourselves, and I feel like that, as the practice deepens and grows, it will overflow into compassion, a genuine empathy for others, and so that's the first thing that comes up for me is that, like, are we we're in touch with something here, and then how do we open fully to the total humanness of everyone around us, and meet them, and I would say this self-fulfilling samadhi is not just an assertion of self, but this appreciation of we're happening together. We're making life together, and so there's this mutuality and a kind of a reciprocity with the people we live with, and we can we can suffer when we turn away from it and then enact suffering. And the more we turn towards it and open, the more, something alive and awake can happen in a meeting.
I'm also really remembering, especially when my grandchildren, but even my child learned the word no, and how as things were coming into their world and learning to say no, that's some very basic form of what you're saying.
Well, I think with children, it's also, there's children, their development of empathy and compassion is not the same as an adult's, and so we do have to help them we have to help them learn that in ways that are appropriate, and I feel like there's ways in which there's like patterns of domination in the culture, and I think they get enacted from parent to child, and so I consciously try to just behold my children as they're growing, but also as like totally full human beings. And how do I meet this? How do I meet this person here right now? When they're being naughty and trying to destroy something, and and not just squash what's there or try to control, because it's easy to slip into like just wanting to, if you're tired and you want them to brush their teeth or something, and so that I find it's anyway, I find it's great practice.
Thank you.
All right. Well, maybe that's good for the talk. So let's see. I'm going to put in, no, I need to find the 4 vows. And I'll put those in the chat. Four Bodhisattva vows. Means are numberless. I vow freedom. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are infinite. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is boundless. I vow to realize it.